Rumors and leaks can be confusing. Most of the time they seem to be derived from the wants and wishes of people, or at the very least made to take advantage of those, then actually be based on compelling evidence that such rumor or leak could possibly be proven true, and actually happen. I mean, just look at how many Bloodborne remake rumors turn out to be true. I mean, yeah, how long have we been waiting for that one? Now, in a previous video of mine, I discussed how a rumored Dark Souls anime being produced was confusing to me. Dark Souls story relies mostly on its lore, a lore that is both enormous, encrypted, open to interpretation, and sometimes confusing to the point that is rage-inducing even for lore masters of the genre. So here's a question. What other From Software title would be a better? It's Sekiro. You've seen the thumbnail. Sekiro would make for a better show in any format than any other Souls series. I mean, that's no secret to anyone, let's be honest here. But the reasons for why that's the case, that's something we can discuss, and hopefully by the end of this video I will show you why Sekiro would make for a better choice for an adaptation. Not only does the narrative of Sekiro follows a far more linear style of storytelling than the Souls games, but due to that, it has its focus on being far more character-driven than all other Souls game stories. Which brings me to the main topic of this discussion, the one-armed wolf, the titular Sekiro. The titular Sekiro is a shinobi duty-bound in servitude to the heir of the dragon's blood, a lone wolf of a warrior who is unwavering in his loyalty, duties, and who is also destined to be the herald of death and perhaps even darkness itself on the battlefield. Damn, FromSoft really enjoys this character archetype, huh? Wonder where that comes from. But why is he as a character so important in comparison to other From Software main characters? Why mentioning the archetype for Sekiro so important? Well, because firstly, he has a freaking face, voice, and personality. Differently than you. I'm joking, okay? I'm just joking. Don't click away from this video, please. But seriously, Sekiro as a character isn't some character's creator abomination that the players mashed up together in an attempt to make a Shrek with Down syndrome. No. And similarly to the Witcher games, we don't play ourselves. No shit. We roleplay. In this case, as Sekiro himself. Just like in The Witcher, we roleplayed as Geralt. We're not playing us like in the Souls games. We're playing this character. We're witnessing his story. And even though this is brutally obvious, it's still important to remember that we are not building our own story. We are experiencing the birth of a legend. Keep in mind, in the Souls games, we are not legends. We are fighting them. And we are fighting them at their lowest. In Sekiro, on the other hand, that is not the case. And make sure to remember that because it will be important later. What we are witnessing is the birth of the legend of his time. The one that will make permanent changes in the course of not only his history, but to all around him. And now it comes to the point where I explain the importance of his character archetype, or at least why I feel it's important and why I mention it in the beginning of this video. An orphan child from the war-torn Sengoku era Japan who is found on the battlefield and subsequently raised and trained by a brutal shinobi, whose first act was to give this kid a permanent scar on his face. After the get-go, we can see firsthand the brutality, violence, and tragedy of this world, its characters, and most importantly, how they deal with it. This immediately builds up character for Sekiro because it allows us to see that this character is a tragic one, who still managed to push through these massive struggles. From the beginning, we see that Sekiro is a character that is strong, capable, and powerful. He's a direct result of this world and of the monsters that inhabits it. Therefore, in one scene, we can both empathize with his tragedy and be at awe with his skills and tenacity. Through his character origin alone, we get great world building, an interesting main character, and possibly powerful rivals. In my honest opinion, a hero is only as good as the challenges or challengers he faces. And remember what I said earlier? Keep in mind, in the Souls games, we are not legends. We are fighting them. And we are fighting them at their lowest. In Sekiro, on the other hand, that is not the case. Where the heroes and bosses of the Souls series are either dead or dying, Sekiro's bosses, on the other hand, are far more alive than you would prefer. And here, they're at their peak of their game. Monsters in the form of men, or literal monsters in some cases, who will do anything to achieve their goals in the quickest, most efficient, and perhaps in the most brutal way possible. There are three main bosses which I'll be delving deeper in this video, for they are, for me at least, the three characters that shape both the story of this world and Sekiro himself the most.
You face Genichiro Ashina.
Although the lesser of the three in both might and finesse, Genichiro serves as the first great obstacle to Sekiro's path. He serves in stark contrast to what Sekiro represents in a way. Sekiro fights for a lord, Genichiro fights for the land he loves. Sekiro fights alone, nameless even, while Genichiro has the worship of his soldiers and followers, a commander whose name is remembered and respected. Sekiro fights according to the tenets of the shinobi code and his lord's wishes, never straying far from them. Genichiro, on the other hand, will use every underhanded tactic in the book to protect what he values most. Genichiro is a great rival due to the fact that he is not necessarily a villain per se. His only crime is the love he has for the country and its people, his country. He presents a duality in the story of Sekiro, for where you fight for the whims and wishes of a single individual, he fights to preserve the stability and freedom of his country, his home. Depending on how you even look at it, he is the hero and Sekiro the villain. Depending on what choices Sekiro makes, Ashina will burn, an outcome Genichiro wishes and fails to prevent. Genichiro chose to save his land. Sekiro, on the other hand, chose to honor his lord. None are wrong in their choices, but their destiny would be forged in strength that Genichiro in the end lacked. Although I believe him to be the weakest character of the ones I'm about to show here in this segment, that does not take away from his importance to the game, be it mechanically or narratively. Mechanically, Genichiro teaches, forcibly, how the game is supposed to be played, and you can bet your ass he will teach you how to play it. Narratively, he is the rival that will constantly be in Sekiro's way throughout the story, a recurring villain for us to follow and perhaps even root for in some way. The Shinobi Code dictates that a shinobi should never show traces of compassion to others, lest he allows his duties to crumble. Yet in great irony, this stout follower of the code, this old owl, when presented by fate to an orphan of war, chose compassion, breaking the code he so devoutly followed, and thus the father figure was born. The owl is irony personified in a character. He taught every single skill he could to the one-armed wolf, instilled every value of the shinobi code onto his adopted son, and yet he himself broke every last one of them. Starting in that fateful day where he chose compassion for an unknown child. Great irony is still to choose compassion over his ambitions, to nurture this pup, to train him in his ways, allowed for the path that would crumble his ambitions, and yet all he could feel in the end was pride. His best and worst choice was to save a life where there was no need for him to do so. A choice that ruined his ambitions, but in the end left him great satisfaction. The owl is Miyazaki's favorite boss in this game. Also my favorite, but I don't particularly matter in this discussion, so yeah, let's just keep going forward. And no wonder. Sekiro himself is a reflection of the owl and his teachings, both in-game with its mechanic and in lore with its narrative. The owl is just like Sekiro, or more like Sekiro is just like the owl. Both are master shinobis, and like him, he uses every trick and tool in the book to achieve victory. To surpass the owl is to show to the viewer how much Sekiro has grown as a character. And all of that is thanks to Old Owl showing compassion at the start of the story. His ambitions may have been crushed, but he fulfilled his purpose as a master, as a father, for he allowed the way. For the student is now the master.
You taught me well. That's my boy. How my blood boils! Face me, Sekiro!
The one who taught us the most important rule of combat.
Hesitation is defeat.
The Sword Saint himself, the undefeated swordsman who once held the title of the hardest Souls boss. Until a certain undefeated Valkyrie took his title, but that's a discussion for another time.
I am Melania, Blade of Mikola.
Although Ao was the father figure who taught Sekiro in his early years, Isshin is the tutor, even protector in some points, to Sekiro throughout the narrative. He is a source of inspiration for both those in-game and out. We are constantly reminded how this man, this Sword Saint, is what freed the lands of Ashina and how he alone is the reason it managed to maintain its sovereignty. A living legend to guide Sekiro through his journey. Isshin Ashina is the type of Yoda or great master-like character that we actually get a chance to engage in combat in the end of the story. And that makes it even more intriguing for his character because he teaches us all these techniques. He allows the way for us, for Sekiro, to move forward and to fulfill his destiny. Only at the end for him to be the final test. We're given the chance to face this legend. No hesitation, no ill will, driven only by his desire to fight. Sekiro is challenged by the Sword Saint himself. And in a battle of two legends at their peak, they cross swords for the first and only time. And in the end, the legend of the one-armed wolf is immortalized by one sword swing.
Well done, Sekiro. Farewell.
The reason why I showcase all of these bosses, these three in particular, these villains, these rivals, is to exemplify how a great villain can forge the story, even more so than the main character. And Sekiro has an abundance of excellent villains, or rivals in this case, that could, in an adaptation, show the true mettle of Sekiro himself as a character, how he takes these challenges head on. No hesitation. That would be very impressive, endearing even to watch. For the might and power of a villain in a story will show the viewer the determination and worth of its hero. Although I'm a staunch believer that villains are in fact the coolest kids in the block, I mean just fucking look at their designs, look at them, they look fucking awesome. I cannot deny at the same time the importance of characters that will guide the hero in their journey to become something bigger than themselves. And by characters, I don't mean the ones that will pound Sekiro into oblivion. No, I mean the characters that will actually support him along the way, even if it's just giving him a little wink. Kuro, Emma, the sculptor, all characters that shaped Sekiro's story to be more than a shinobi automaton, built to fulfill his father's schemes. Characters who also have an active urgency in the world they live in, people that, although not destined to become legends like Sekiro, will forge the future of the lands of Ashina. I mean, fucking hell, Kuro is the guy that actually is the reason for all of this. Although I won't go in depth analyzing their characters like I did the three bosses because I honestly don't believe they deserve it, well, perhaps Kuro and the sculptor, but still, I will mention them and their importance in driving the story forward. I mean, if it weren't for the sculptor, Sekiro wouldn't be here, he would be dead. If it weren't for Kuro's power, he would still be rotting in a ditch somewhere. What would be a character without an actor to play them? And well, by now you shouldn't be surprised that Sekiro is filled with a plethora of interesting characters, each of them with their motivations, story arcs, and each of them, of course, with their excellent and talented voice actors. And oh boy, the voice acting in this game is good.
My name is Kyobu Masataka Oniwa! As I breathe, you will not pass the castle gate!
Okay.
Not only does Sekiro boast an excellent cast of voice actors that could once again replay their roles in a potential adaptation, these are also voice actors with experience in the anime voice work industry, so finding them is probably not going to be that hard, hopefully. Cherry on top of it, they also have the actors for both the Japanese and English dubs, which means that, well, the casting department could rest easy, hopefully. Of course, the only problem is getting all of them back at the same time together in order to play their roles once again, but again, Berserk, the Memorial Edition, managed to do it, so hopefully in this hypothetical scenario, it wouldn't be too much of a hassle. And now we finally reach the conclusion of this video. In short, the main reason why I particularly believe Sekiro would be a better adaptation in comparison to other Souls titles is because the story is simply a character-driven story. A character that, in particular, is easy to understand, empathize, and root for. Sekiro himself is also surrounded by other amazing characters who possess very well-written urgencies and goals. They are really interesting pieces of the puzzle of the story. They feel real and important in the scope of the narrative. And of course, I would not forget about the lore, and although Sekiro follows a much more linear style of storytelling, the lands of Ashina still serve as a fountain of many legends, rumors, creatures, items, and even long-dead characters that would tingle the curiosity of any lore enthusiast, even if they are not already a fan of the Souls series, or in this case Sekiro itself. And that is why Sekiro Shadows Die Twice would make, at least for me, for a better animated adaptation than the Souls series. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and consider subscribing for more speculative content. This has been the Discount Russian, and I'm out. Peace.